to partner with so many extraordinary New York-based entrepreneurs. We, have been fortunate to be founding kind of Series A lead investors in companies like Olo and BuzzFeed and Noom
Oh,
and
wow.
lots and lots of others that have grown on to reach really significant scale.
This is another episode of the Founders Pack Form Your Own Pack podcast. My guest today is Will Porteous from RRE. Will, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you for joining me. So for people that don't know, who is Will Porteous?
So I'm a general partner and the chief operating officer of RRE Ventures. I've been a part of the investment team here for 22 years, actually. I lead a lot of our activities in the hardware and systems area. And over the last 6 or 7 years, that's included a lot of things, not only in traditional areas like networking and storage systems, but also in the space sector, and
Oh, wow.
in particular in the satellite systems and supporting components area.
So RRE, we were talking before, is a little bit of a pioneer. Like you were probably one of the early venture firms in New York, which is not traditionally known for venture.
Yeah, that's right. RRE was founded in 1994 by my partners, Jim Robinson IV and Stuart Ellman. And for the last 28 years, we've been focused on early stage investing, principally in this ecosystem. About 70% of our companies are based here. And frankly, it's been an incredible privilege to partner with so many extraordinary New York-based entrepreneurs. We, have been fortunate to be founding kind of Series A lead investors in companies like Olo and BuzzFeed and Noom and
Oh, wow.
lots and lots of others that have grown on to reach really significant scale. And the dynamics of company building in this market are really great. It's highly collaborative amongst investors and entrepreneurs, and we see a diversity of innovation here that goes way beyond what most people expect to see in New York.
So when you're looking to invest, is your philosophy always been the same, I guess, first off?
Yeah, I mean, we're by discipline and experience, all of us entrepreneurs. So we were all involved in building companies in our prior lives. And so we come at this business really with a goal of being partners with great entrepreneurs. Our philosophy is to be in it with you as a founder from the beginning and throughout the whole journey of the company. And so we very often end up playing that lead investor, lead director, in some cases, chairperson role. Throughout the life of a business. And so we're investing at the seed at Series A level and then following on in subsequent rounds and, bringing other investors on board, doing all the things that you expect from a strong lead investor partner.
And then what are you primarily looking for in a startup or a founder?
So it's one of those questions that I think evolves throughout your career as an investor. I think for me, I look for entrepreneurs who first and foremost have a really deep personal understanding of the problem that they're solving and who bring to that just a life passion and a willingness to pour their own life force into solving that problem and creating an organization around solving that problem, and who then have the ability to inspire others with their vision for that solution, others being employees, investors, customers, and really to kind of project their vision onto an entire ecosystem, because that's what it takes. And we see that over and over again across our portfolio.
So, these days, what is really getting your interest, or what are you excited about?
Well, there's a lot of things happening in the portfolio that I'm super excited about. I'll call out kind of one small company in our portfolio because it's had some notable achievements recently, and I think it's a good case study for where we're headed in the space sector. The company is called Lynk, L-Y-N-K, and it's a seed investment in one of our funds that is essentially building cellular base stations in space.
Oh, wow.
So they've basically built they've taken a different approach to the basic architecture of a cellular network, and they've said, what if instead of terrestrial base stations, everything just existed in space? And they've now reached a point where an end user with an iPhone can send and receive text messages that flow entirely just through a base station infrastructure that's in space. That's a technical first.
Okay.
And it heralds the beginning of a new era in terms of massive reduction in capital deployment costs associated with expanding cellular network coverage worldwide. Their network is already supporting emergency services in certain parts of the world where there is no cellular coverage other than through space. And they've been recognized recently by companies like Mercedes-Benz, who are looking at this as a way to provide more support in vehicle for their customers worldwide. So it's still a very small company, but I love
really
it in part because this is still raw innovation, right?
That's very, so, because I think traditionally, like, we had Iridium, which was not the greatest success in that space going back quite a while. I'm dating myself, and you had this competition between what are known as LEO and GeoSats, right? And one was like 4 of them would cover the Earth, and the other one was like 88 of them. So how does this work? Like, is it a GEO or a LEO, or is it something else?
So it's a LEO, but it's a series of LEOs. So
Okay.
the basic paradigm, and you in your comments about Iridium are really insightful. We've essentially decomposed the monolithic satellite into distributed smaller satellites that sit in LEO, and we've moved away from a space industry architecture that builds big things that we expect to be on orbit for 20 or 30 years,
Right.
and replace them with a lot of much cheaper small satellites operating in concert in a constellation where we can add capacity with a few launches. We know that some capacity is going to deorbit and go offline, and we can essentially create a fabric around the Earth to support an application like this one. That's what Link is doing.
That's very interesting. All right, we'll have to check that out. I want to be conscious of your time because I know we're all super busy. A couple quick questions we can wrap with. First, is there anything that we haven't touched on you think is really important?
No, I would just say in the first half of 2022, we've seen a big contraction in public market values in technology, and we're seeing now a consequent compression in private market valuations. It's still a great time for entrepreneurs to start new companies and build new companies. And we look at the most successful deals in our portfolio, and some of them actually started right after the financial crisis in 2008. Right. So building a company through a period like this is a completely normal and reasonable thing to do. And people who are called to this as entrepreneurs shouldn't be intimidated by the macro environment right now.
Love it. That makes a lot of sense. And I think that even the stats coming in from 2020 and 2021 are like record creation of new businesses, right? And I think we were talking before, like, it's easy to build software. Now apparently it's easy to build other stuff that was really complicated, whether it's hardware or microorganisms or some crazy stuff we're seeing. So that's really good advice. Speaking of advice, if you could offer only one piece of advice to founders, what would it be?
When you're talking to investors, you need to have thought through the whole value creation process for them, just like you're thinking it through for your customers, and just like you're espousing a vision to your employees. Why is the company ultimately going to be really valuable? Not just why you're going to sell a lot of stuff and have an impact in the market, but why is it actually really going to matter and be valuable in the end state? Because the companies that drive performance for us are always landscape changing, important new independent businesses, right? And that takes a lot of vision and also a willingness to be very specific about the future and about future value. So we look for entrepreneurs who have thought all of that through from an investor's perspective.
That is great feedback. What role has partnerships or community played in either your success or those of the most successful startups that you've worked with?
I think every early stage company depends on kind of customers who get it early and become champions. I was fortunate to be on the BuzzFeed board for 10 and a half years. And one of the greatest things that happened for that company was the resonance of the work we were doing with the LGBTQ community, and kind of they recognized that we were providing a voice for that community. And they responded with a lot of loyalty and with a lot of sharing of the good things that we were doing in news and in media. And you never take your customer relationship for granted, and particularly your early customer relationships. And that's true for good CEOs and founders, and it's equally true for investors like us.
I love it. That's a great example. All right, final two things. How do people get in touch with you?
It's easy. It's just will@rre.com.
Terrific. We will include that in the show notes. And the final thing is, when we have interesting investors or founders on the podcast, we'd like you to nominate another founder or investor. So we'd like to talk to people that are starting or running scalable ventures or investing in them. Who would you, Will, like to nominate as a future guest?
Oh, that's great. To come back to it, I would actually like to nominate Charles Miller, the CEO of Link, who I was talking about earlier.
Super.
He's a multi-time founder who's doing incredible work in the space sector, and it's been a somewhat unheralded company until recently. And this is real breakthrough innovation that's going to change a lot of the landscape. So Charles Miller would be a great choice.
Love it, Charles. You've been nominated as a future guest. Thank you, Will, for your participation. I want to acknowledge you for all the interesting work you're doing, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
No problem.